Hi, hi campers.
Hey everyone.
We're back.
Yeah,
We're back, and Catherine and I are under appropriate supervision.
I actually genuinely saw that you two had been online and thought, I don't think I'm not going to watch it.
It wasn't that bad. It wasn't.
We were definitely quite good, actually.
We were.
Maybe you're not don't really need me to.
I think we did 1 week, babe. I think otherwise we might have started showing off. We might have done.
You got a bit tired. Yeah.
I'm very tired currently. And I am, as I said as my little caption says, I am prone to showing off. Hello, everybody. I've seen some friends popping in. Hello. Shall I do the thing before we do the thing?
There might be swearing in your own houses at home because of the football.
Yeah, we're 1-0 down already.
All your Timmies.
Oh, we've got a VAR.
Moment. Oh, hello.
All right, sorry, go.
One eyeball on the football, but she is with us. She could. This woman can multitask, whereas I just multi-ask. Hello, friends. Welcome to History After Dark. It's just gone 8:15 on a very fine Wednesday. We called it that for a variety of reasons, but principally, this is a space for us to come. We, on our personal social media, you would not know. We are like impeccable, ladylike, wonderful human beings, where really behind the scenes, every single one of us has a powerful rage and a mouth like a navvy, as Milana would say. So this is our space to come and let our freak flags fly, to indulge in our enjoyment of 4-letter expletives, smut, innuendo, innuendo, and general filth. So with that being said, if you are in an open plan office with a judgmental boss, put a headphone in. If you're at a kitchen table, in a car, or in some other space with a small child, we call this child Timmy. I haven't got the mug. Who's got a mug?
Oh,
there we go. Here's our merch. Timmy is a problem. Timmy's the sort of child that hears one thing one time, locks it away in his mind palace, takes it into school with him, repeats it. In my head, his teacher is Miss Honey. She is pure as the driven. She does not watch History After Dark, so she forgets the first cardinal rule of History After Dark, which is, if you don't know what it means, don't Google it. It's not for you. She Googles it. Now, you've been called at the school. You've got to explain why your son or child that you're looking after knows this thing. And you've also got to pay for roughly 18 weeks of therapy because Miss Honey is still curled up in the fetal position and she is now non-verbal and they need to fix her. Because the vulgarity gets worse and worse and worse. So put a headphone in. Alternatively, you can always watch us on the playback if you can't put a headphone in. That being said, it's worth watching us live because there has been one occasion where we have said something so unspeakably depraved, so borderline illegal, that we had to yeet that footage directly into the sun. It's not happened since, which means in my head, one of three things. First, we've got better. Unlikely. Second, we're due a snafu. Very possible. Third, and I think possibly the most likely, considering the more time we spend together, the more depraved it gets. When it comes to like our bar of what's acceptable, that bar, friends, is now in hell. Thus, with this beautiful handcrafted Waterford crystal, that's a golden Waterford crystal of a disclaimer. If you are watching the football or not, you're going to know what's happening because Philippa is going to be jumping up and down or be furious, and you'll know exactly what's going on. So there will be spoilers for the football tonight. That's a further disclaimer. With all of that being said, if you have heard this disclaimer and think it's therefore appropriate to come either into these comments or the comments on our personal social media and go, I really like the history After Dark, but I don't like it when they swear. It's not very ladylike. We know what you're doing and we are not going to respond. We are not going to do what you want and pin that comment because we know that what you are looking for is for other people to come and humiliate you because that's your kink. And look, babes, kinks are fine. I'm not going to kink shame you. Catherine might, but I'm not going to kink shame you. But it's really important that kink comes with consent. Now, if you want to be ritually humiliated, I've got a whole list of people in various basements in Brighton. I've got Jocasta, Tiffany,
directory now.
Sinead, Claire, all of them.
Commission.
I'm on commission. I'm not their pimp. And they can do unspeakable things with nipple clamps, batteries, and just the things that some of them can do with love beads will turn your hair Great.
Oh.
So, pay for the privilege, and kink without consent is not okay. This is History After Dark, friends, and we hope after all of that you are all adults. Go to bed, Lucas.
He's watching the
Thus,
football.
you can make your own choices. We will never approve this being a drinking game. We are not responsible for your livers. This will never be legal advice. Please don't sue. I think that's everything. Is it not?
I think so.
Yes.
I think so.
Let's talk about Nelson.
We're just going to thank Chrissy for her
Thank you.
$9.99. Thank you all.
It wouldn't be the same without Chrissy here every week.
Thank you, Chrissy.
No, lovely.
Pretty Pick says, did they football well? I think they possibly did football well.
They got awarded a penalty and Kane scored it. So yeah, it was.
They sports billed well.
They
I never know about this stuff. Like David doesn't watch. He comes in the other week. I was like, "What are you watching? Football? Oh, what is it? Well, it's the European Cup." I was like, "Is it?" Didn't even know it was on.
I was saying to Philippa, my son walked into the neighbour's house, and they've got a massive flat screen TV. Walked into the neighbour's house. She loves football, the mum, and he walks in. Gabriel takes one look at it, looks at her, and goes, "Why are you watching football?" Because I like football. And he went, "Can we put Frozen on?" She goes, Why don't you want to watch football? He's like, "Because Frozen."
Maybe he likes something he knows the end of. It's much less.
He's like, "Can I sing along to this?" Probably not.
Want high tension drama sometimes. Life is stressful anyway. Don't add more stress onto it.
I mean, I will also say
that Anna and Elsa are going to be all right.
True. I will also say, considering his love of learning the songs, and considering how football chants can sometimes be,
Timmy's.
and considering his, I feel like I'm happy he doesn't want to watch football.
He might. He might take them and make them his own. I feel.
I have pictures of my son stood in his garden at daycare, just going, "The referee's a wanker."
I mean, he's still got time. To be fair, he's still got time. Maybe that will be the draw.
But yeah, hey, Gabriel, come here. They swear loads in the stands.
He'll be like, I'm in.
Oh, really? Let me get my ear horn out, my ear trumpet. Let me listen in very well. Oh, there's swearing, is there? Let's have a listen with my little stethoscope.
Ear trumpet.
In my head, my son is like some 1920s pipe smoking waistcoat, smoking jacket, befuddled older gentleman.
There was Noel Coward about him.
In my head, he is Noel Coward. Meet Oscar Wilde. It's when he's really disappointed in us. He brings out what I like to call the limp wrist of judgment. When Mummy and Daddy are being just terrible, this hand comes out. Mummy, Daddy, and so in my head, he's just become Noel Coward in my head.
I'm going to call it Noel from now on. Noel and Catme. Or Noel and Catherine. That's what your children are called now.
Yeah.
Noel and Catherine. Yeah.
Okay.
Brilliant name for a boy. As I am your midwife. So, as you know.
Right, it's a bit hot in here.
I think it's you.
Yeah, probably.
Although Catherine's always cold, you're always hot.
Right, who's kicking us off?
Oh, I am. But do you know what? I didn't get a picture. I meant to get a picture. I'm guessing though that Philippa knows I'm shite and she's got a picture.
Look at him. Look at his baby blues.
There he is.
He's got quite a delicate nose, hasn't he?
I think it's a powerful nose. To be honest, as portraits go, and portraits we do know are deceptive, he's already winning points because, frankly, he's a bit of a sort. Let's be honest, bit of a sort.
There was a younger one. I haven't put it in where he's looking really quite dashing.
It looks like his mouth's on upside down.
No, he's got nice full lips, hasn't he?
Nice
I
lips.
see what you mean, though.
Yeah,
He's sort of got almost like a little Cupid's bow at the bottom.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's got Silver Fox vibes going as well.
He's got what, sorry?
Silver Fox vibes.
Yeah,
also.
wow. We like those. Mm.
Yeah.
So yeah, basically he's already winning points because we all think he's fit.
He's fit and he's hard in a tough man way.
He might be hard in all ways. Ask his girlfriend. Right. Shall we? Off you go, Catherine.
All right, Lord Horatio Nelson, ladies and gentlemen, was moulded by the Georgian world in which he lived. His most famous victory, which I'm sure is how most of you know, is the Battle of Trafalgar. And really, he was what would then be how we see a celebrity today, really, as close as it was. And he loved it. He loved climbing in the higher echelons of society. He liked the sort of the fame and everything that came with it. He was sort of quite grandiose in that fashion. But he fought a very hard career. He fought over 20 battles during his time, and that is no mean feat. So he was born in Burnham Thorpe in Norfolk, which it's not right on the coast. It was about a mile from the sea. And although it was this sort of quiet little sleepy town, I think it meant quite a lot to him, actually. So he was born on the 29th of September, 58, and he was the 6th of 11 children. Not much to do in small towns a mile from the sea, apparently. Well, yes, exactly. But it was quite sort of like quite a typical small town, a quiet, quite rural life, nothing dead fancy and exciting going on, lots of farming, a little bit of a backwater. So his parents, quite interesting, his parents. Edward Nelson was the local parson. And so Nelson was born in the rectory. And now the rectory was actually demolished when his father died in 1802. And they built another one, which was essentially the same footprint, but a little bit bigger. But it has a plaque on it that says the old rectory in which the Admiral was born stood 20 yards back from this wall. And if you go in, there's a garden with a pond in, which I'll talk to you more about in a second. His mother, Catherine, was the grandniece of Robert Walpole, 1st Earl of Oxford, who you may have heard from because he was the de facto Prime Minister of Great Britain for a period. And in fact, Horatio was named after Horatio Walpole, who was his godfather, and the 1st Earl of Orford. So he was the nephew of Robert Walpole. There you go. So the direct relationship between Robert Walpole and Horatio Nelson is very convoluted and frankly not interesting. He attended Paston Grammar School in North Walsham until he was 12 and also spent some time at King Edward VI Grammar School in Norwich. So that was his schooling. However, he wasn't at school long time. On the 1st of January, he began his naval career at the Royal Navy, aged 12. I'm looking at most 12-year-old boys. I know, I'm thinking they can hardly tie their shoelaces.
Might do him some good.
It's the British Navy. That's fairly common. Like powder monkeys of 7 and 8.
Well,
it's fairly common.
That here it says it's not that unusual, especially back then. Especially if you had connections. And you may be a little bit posh. So he, in fact, first served as a boy under his mother's uncle, whose name was Maurice Suckling. You'd change that, wouldn't you? Anyway, he was already in the Navy, obviously, Maurice, under his stewardship. And so Nelson had an apprenticeship. And the ship that he went on to was the 3rd-rate HMS Raisonnable, I don't know. Where he was an ordinary seaman, which is someone who has had between 2 to 3 years experience, and then a coxswain. The etymology of coxswain means boat servant, so someone's in charge of the boat. And shortly after reporting aboard, he was made a midshipman. So he went, I was going to say he sailed through the ranks. Oh dear, that was
very funny. Very
intentionally poor. So got made a midshipman quite quickly, and that's like the lowest rank of officer. But that meant he'd begun officer training, and he did sail through the ranks quicker than a lot of people. He was away a long time on this period at sea, and he saw service in the Baltic Sea. He was off the coast of Canada and off the coast of the West Indies, and became a captain at the age of just 20. And he reported earlier in this part of career and moving forwards was that he actually suffered quite a lot with seasickness. So this is a rubbish choice of career. But
wrong job, babe. Wrong job.
Wrong choice. You got to do what you got to do. So hang on a minute. Now, where am I? So what I will say is there's obviously, I'm just kind of giving an overview here. There are so many battles and so many boats and so many, I did this on this and this on that, but we can't cover it all. So should you wish to Google What boats did Nelson go on? It's safe to do so, as far as I'm aware. All right. So in 1787, he got married. He only had one marriage, and this was to a lady called Frances or Fanny Herbert Walwood in a place called Nevis, where he was stationed at the time. I know what face Cat's pulling without even looking. So she already had a son called Josiah Nesbit from her first marriage. Her first husband passed away, and Josiah actually went to sea with Nelson, and he was age 12 aboard the HMS Agamemnon. I love that, but I have to think about it before I say it.
Can I just say that? Can we just have a Pretty Pics comment? You're just giving his CV up on screen because the spelling of that is. I enjoy the pun. It's utterly delicious. C like the body of water. V fabulous. Well done. Congratulations.
The possibility for puns is quite notable with this particular topic. Yes, so Josiah was also 12 when he went to sea with Nelson, so his stepfather, aboard the HMS Agamemnon in 1793, and they actually fought alongside one another. And this is quite amazing. So we know that obviously Nelson severely injured his right arm. You quite often see it, don't you, with the portrait when it's tucked inside the jacket. And when he was injured,
he lost it, didn't he? Did he not lose his arm?
Well, quite a lot of it, yeah.
Most lost the function. Yeah,
he didn't. So it was so Josiah applied the tourniquet, got him to a boat, and got him to the shore, and basically saved his life. And he was promoted. So Josiah was at the age of just 19 to post captain, and probably there was a bit of a thank you going on there. However, and this had, I'm mentioning this more because when we talk about some of the stuff to do with his legacy, but apparently the kid didn't have a massively attractive personality. But not unreasonably, I think, around what was happening at this time, he was very angry with Nelson about how Nelson was treating his mother, and we'll come back to a little bit. So just a couple of years later, Nelson had kind of gone, I think how it rolled out, basically, from what I can make out, Nelson was like, yeah, actually, you're becoming a bit of a pain in the arse at this juncture. So thanks for the life-saving bit, but I'll see you around. I think that's kind of pretty much what happened from what I can glean. So, okay, so his wife, Frances, she would have been posted with him wherever he had a land base, wherever he was serving aboard a ship. Now, Britain was perpetually at war with France because it's just what you did. But not long after they married, actually, there was a period of peace. And so they returned to England. And he was what's called cast on the beach. So almost like semi-retired, really, because they couldn't sort of bin him off, and they didn't want to bin him off, but there wasn't anything for him to do. So he was not required in a fleet because of the period of peace. And so therefore he was on half pay, which of course is really awful. So in 1788, they had to go back to, I might sneeze, they had to go back to Burnham Thorpe to try and reduce their living costs. And they lived in the old rectory. Now, he was, as I mentioned, he was very ambitious. He wanted to be climbing the ladder. He liked being with people of note. And so while they were here, he spent a good sort of 5 years just writing letters and trying to make connections to move himself forward, get in with the right people, get back in the action of things. Now, this is quite sweet. In this period, he designed and built, well, he didn't build it, obviously, because that's like common people's work, isn't it? Digging stuff. But in the garden at the old rectory, so before it was knocked down, he built a pond. And if you look down on it, it's the shape of a boat. It's quite cool. Yeah. And it's filled from a nearby river and 30 feet long. So that's quite the pond, ladies and gentlemen. That's quite the pond. So yeah, basically. So peace was no good to Nelson. He wasn't interested in all that, everyone sitting around being nice to each other. But huzzah! In 1793, it all went pear-shaped again during the advent of the French Revolutionary Wars. So he was called back into service and put in the command of the favourite ship he ever worked on during his career, the HMS Agamemnon. I have to pause to say it. So he was so excited about this that he threw a party in the local boozer, which was called the Plough. And he served in the Mediterranean, helped capture Corsica, and he lost the sight in his right eye. So obviously we also see him in the famous image, obviously not here, but wearing an eye patch, don't we? And he lost the sight in that eye during the siege of Calvi, a fortification on the Isle of Corsica in 1794. I didn't look into what happened there because eyes are squishy and I don't like it. So we also mentioned about him losing the use or a lot of his right arm. That was damaged in the Battle of Santa Cruz in Tenerife in 1797. And whilst he was recuperating in London later on, he was awarded the freedom of the city and given a £1,000 per annum pension, which is over £130,000 now. So he loved to be in the thick of the action. Sorry, Philippa.
Kushti.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you're not going to turn that down, are you, to be honest? No. Especially at the time, he was lying home with his trotters up because he did have a poorly arm, to be fair. And it's all right.
I mean, I can't imagine that as somebody who's in charge of the ship, he's loading a cannon. He's just standing there barking orders. Get back to work.
Well, wow, you say that. You say that. He loved to be in the thick of the action himself. He was a bit of a nutter, I think, and he often endangered himself, believing he would die young. Now, everyone says, "Oh, that's terrible," but I was like, well, bearing in mind the job
that you do, profession,
yeah, and the fact that as well, at that time, the position was that the commanders on the ships actually had to be highly visible. This is how he managed to get, well, Philippa's going to talk about how he mumped it, but he was where they had to stand and what they wore. It was basically a massive flashing beacon. All right, look at me, I'm over here being all like commandery. And yeah, so he was very highly visible. So I don't think it was a reasonable assumption. They were like, oh, he had this premonition he was going to die young. No, he's dressed up like a neon flashing beacon on an unstable surface with lots of people shooting things at him. I'm not convinced that there was some sort of psychic prediction going on here. But anyway, but yes, but they led by example with all this position of these things. You know, they had to try and keep the morale up. They were saying, you're here, I'm doing this as well, I'm not shying back, and that was how they were expected to be. But he was really, really gung-ho, really inspiring leader, described as recklessly brave. Okay, but yes, one often likely to hasten your demise. So despite all these injuries, in 1798, he helped to command a huge victory. I don't know why I did that. In the Battle on the Nile. So this involved more squishing of the French. And when the people of Burnham Thorpe found out, they were very excited. And they renamed the pub, the Plough, where he'd had the piss up, the Lord Nelson. Now, that stayed there for a long, long time, but I think it's closed now.
No.
He absolutely destroyed Napoleon's fleet, and which quashed his bid for a trade route to India. So up until the point that he was a real thorn in Napoleon's side and just dominated the French from 1794 to 1805. I mean, he really did. It was like, Napoleon, you've got your land, but you're not going to take the sea as well. And I think Napoleon never really kind of recovered. You know, he was hoping, I think even once Nelson was dead, it's like, yeah, he's gone now, but no. But I'm sure you'll talk about the open seas and then the control of the seas in Legacy. So he was on a posting in Naples after the Battle of the Nile, as I just mentioned, and there was a massive scandal. A scandal, everybody. And he was not a scandalo that it didn't really affect his career or anything. So again, he liked meeting and working alongside and seeing what he get from like notable people. And he met a chap called William Hamilton, whose title was, oh God, it's another one I can't pronounce, His Majesty's Minister Plenipotentiary to the Kingdom of the Two Sicilies.
Okay, you did it.
And then this chap was married to a lady called Emma, Lady Hamilton, and he fell in love. Nelson did, with Lady Hamilton, William's wife, and she fell in love with him. And now she had a little bit of a reputation, not too bad, a little bit of a reputation. And before marrying William, she had been the mistress of William's nephew, Charles Francis Grenville. So that's a bit weird. He was a
Keeping
bit
it in the
young,
family.
bit of a cougar thing going on there. Anyway, he binned her off, and she was very upset about this. Went to William. Now, when they got married, he was 60 and she was 26. I've got a slight gold digger on the rebound thing going off in my head, but I mean, I don't know, I wasn't there. So, but they were a very glamorous couple. He was very well educated. People really enjoyed his company. He was popular, and she was seen as a real beauty. They hosted lots of very famous parties, so they were well known and people flocked to them. And she had been an actress in Drury Lane, and her thing was that she would dress as various historical figures and strike various poses, which she called her attitudes. And apparently it was very entertaining.
Sure, it was.
And once again, I wasn't there, so I won't comment. All right, so in 1801, he was promoted to Vice-Admiral, so he's doing very well. And on that same year, on the 29th of January, Emma gave birth to a daughter, Horatia. Let's play Guess Who the Dad Was. Anyway,
Also,
they were
because he was like, involved in the arts so much and hanging around with theatricals, writers, and artists, your imagination's a bit lax, love. Horatio.
Well, it's quite clear they're not trying to hide it. I wonder if the marriage was one of, like, he clearly had. I reckon he gave the green light to her behaviour.
Well,
perhaps even this specific relationship.
So they were both obviously still married, Nelson and Emma, but William was quite aged at that point. And it is said, and it could be just apocryphal, that when he passed away, William, he died in his wife's arms holding Nelson's hand. So obviously, if that is the case, that would strike me that, yeah, it was like a blessing of some sort.
Or a menage.
Or that. I don't think Nelson's wife was very happy, though. But
No.
yeah, you probably wouldn't be, would you? In that,
well, there were three in the bed, and none of them was her, so probably she felt a bit left out.
And they didn't have any children together either, so she just had the one son, and they didn't have any children. Although her son, I didn't go into much to him because obviously it's not about him, but he did have a family of his own. So, 1801 saw the Battle of Copenhagen. So I'm only really sort of going into the bigger ones. And Sir Hyde Parker was another commander, raised a flag on his ship, and this flag was an order for Nelson not to attack. So Nelson claimed he hadn't seen this by holding his telescope to his blind eye, and then went and did what he wanted anyway. And he had a little bit of a habit of just doing what he wanted anyway, and just going, and he used the eye thing on more than one occasion. So he was known for flouting orders. But part of the problem with that was that sometimes, like at Copenhagen, they saw him achieve great victories. Same with the Spanish in 1797 off of Cape Vincent. So it's kind of hard to go, well, you shouldn't have done that. Yeah, but mate, they're all dead. Yeah, so what are you going to do? And I'm going to keep winning. So really. So I think, is anybody, just to check, Kat, are you going to be talking about the slave trade?
No.
Oh, so just to mention really briefly then, in terms of, because this what comes under legacy, he was at the height of his career, this is very brief, during the depths of the slave trade. So a lot of people now, more modern historians, are really quite aggressive towards him. They said, he didn't oppose the slave trade, perhaps when he could have done. And there's not necessarily a defense for it, but he wasn't supporting it either, like most people weren't, except the abolitionists. And, he had a lot of influence over the seas, but the Navy weren't transporting or aiding in the slave trade. So it was kind of out of his remit, really. But I think a lot of it was just guilt by association. So in 1804, he wrote about the Burnham Thorpe aboard the HMS Victory, which I'm going to leave in a minute because that's almost Philippa's bit, whilst he was off the coast of Brittany, acknowledging he'd probably never see it again. And he wished to be buried alongside his father. But because he was like properly dead fancy, they actually chucked him in St. Paul's. So that is your introduction to Horatio Nelson. There you go.
Lovely jubbly. Well, let's hop straight into word of the week. It's mine today, and that can mean only one thing. It's time to get your cant out. Oh, cant.
Nice.
What, ladies and jelly beans, is a dandy prat?
A dandy
dandy
prat.
All one word. Dandy prat.
Dandy.
Prat.
Because obviously a dandy was a kind of a guy who was dressed in a very dapper capacity. wasn't it?
flamboyant.
Yeah.
Yeah, not that route.
Not that right.
Arguably, we are all dandy prats. But if you called me a dandy prat to my face, I might dandy prat you in the oubliette.
In the oubliette.
You might see what a dandy prat can do to your oubliette. We are all dandy prats. People are always potentially, when they meet us, having seen us online, surprised by our dandy pratness.
Small, short.
Short people, yes. A dandy prat is a small person. Other words in this general vicinity are chit, jack sprat, a kinchin cove, a minikin. I like minikin quite a lot.
Oh, that's cute.
A shrimp and a tom thumb. Those are all too obvious, so I thought I'd do dandy prat.
Dandy
I'm happy with the situation, I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
Nice.
With them.
Comments coming in a bit late. Well, there we go. I've heard of some more ones, but not dandy prat.
So Philippa's taking up the next mantle.
So
it all goes a bit wrong, doesn't it?
It does go a bit wrong.
It
goes right and wrong at the same time. So Nelson is he is a hero of his of his time as well. He's a hero, he's well known. He's not just a gung-ho and brave man, you know, we've seen loads of them through history, but he thinks about strategy, and you know, he's a bit of a genius in that respect. They go into the Battle of Trafalgar on the 21st of October 1805, and Nelson has I don't know if it's just Nelson, but anyway, they come up with this plan. So Trafalgar is the waters just off Gibraltar, or our waters just off Gibraltar, and they're in battle with the French and the Spanish, who have come out of port. They've come out in this sort of crescent, semicircular. So this is them on the right-hand side. The English under Nelson decide to go in two columns. You've got to think about a ship and where the guns are. The guns don't fire out the front, they fire out the sides. So the idea is they're going to go through the lines of the French and Spanish and do as much damage as possible as they go through by firing as much as they can. The British Navy is incredibly well trained. They are the fastest at loading and reloading. That does them very well in battle. They train with live ammo, so they know what they're about when they get to it. So yeah, they're doing things a bit sideways. So so this is, I love this little diagram, but yeah, so that gives you an idea of how they are in the water. As Catherine's already mentioned, Nelson is on HMS Victory. This is HMS Victory here, sat now in Portsmouth Historic Dockyard. And because I took this photo and I like it and I'm proud of it, on the right hand side, it sat next to the Mary Rose. I think the Victory got there first. In fact, I'm sure she did. And then the Mary Rose is in that building next door. But anyway, so if you do go to Portsmouth Historic Dockyard, they're sat there right next to each other. HMS Victory, just as a side note, is still HMS because it is still a active naval station.
Yeah.
There's Navy on there. If you go around there, you will see them on there.
Apparently, technically, she's still at war.
Technically, she's still at war. The Navy have these odd
with the French, or
could
Macron step foot aboard it?
Yeah, maybe if Macron comes near.
Because there's
That would
another
be-
one as well. I can't remember what it's called, but I don't think that's actually on land. I think that's sunk somewhere. But
To the
technically
sea. I didn't
speaking, that's
understand.
not been decommissioned either.
Yeah,
Cool,
basically it's
actually.
still in commission. That's basically it.
And that's quite cool.
So they I can't remember what I've put on the next slide. Oh yes, you might have heard of this. It's famous for having sent out the message. This is by flag, so the ships would a bit like semaphore. Basically, they've got a coded language in order to send out a message from the lead ship to the others, and he instructs the signalman to come up with this one. England expects that every man will do his duty. Some words you can see there can be created. So a whole word can be created by 3 flags, and others had to be with duty. There was no code, so it had to be done letter by letter. And that is a famous phrase known to Nelson, you know, that instruction for everyone to to get their balls in order because we're going in.
Their
Now,
cannonballs
apparently-
in order.
get your cannonballs in order, get whatever balls you need in
Awesome.
order. We're
Mm.
going in, and we're taking the French and their friends, the Spanish, out.
Mm.
Apparently the wind is not particularly blowing well on this day, so it's sort of it seems a bit weird. It's like a slow motion. They're coming in slow motion, and but they know any moment they're going to, all hell's going to break loose.
Mm.
So I thought I'd put these up. These are
Very Georgian.
portraits sort of imagined of the Battle of Trafalgar. I particularly think the August Mayor one on the top right is quite, so Catherine was talking earlier about how they go into battle, and the commanders will still be wearing all their finery. And it's true that Nelson was asked perhaps to maybe not wear his coat. He says, I haven't got time to be, but he says it's too late to shift my coat. You know, it's too long, too soon, and I haven't got enough time. But actually, also, visibility during a battle is not what you might think it is anyway. So it's almost, I don't know, by the by what he's wearing. Perhaps it is it's sort of put forward. So they go into battle. Victory goes round the back of, there was a French ship called, it was their flagship basically. He realizes that Villeneuve, who I think must be one of the French commanders, is on a ship called the Bucentaure. That will not be how it's pronounced. I have no idea. A French ship, basically, with a really important dude on, is within reach of the Victory. So Hardy decides that who's the captain of, because remember, Nelson's not the captain, he's the Vice-Admiral. He's not actually in charge of the ship, he's in charge of the fleet, or his part of the fleet. Thomas Hardy is now a famous actor, but he was once the captain of the Victory.
Different bloke. Tom Hardy is not, a vampire.
Yeah.
Different, same name, different man.
I like to think of them as the same, but anyway, yeah. So anyway, so they go around and they open up on this ship and they really destroy it. Of course, they're in the thick of it, and the Victory becomes entangled. It is close to another French ship called the Redoubtable. And there is basically a sniper up on the rigging of the Redoubtable who shoots. And this is where it's sort of thought, well, was he an obvious target? He is on the top deck. I'm not going into what the real names of the decks are in case any pedant wants to start going into that. He's on the top of the ship, right? So he is there giving out his orders. He wants to see the battle. He's a bit like Well, yeah, he wants to be in the thick of it. But I was thinking Churchill when he's up on the rooftops in the raids. You know, they want to see what's going on, and so that's kind of blamed the fact he's got his hat, he's got his coat on, for the fact that he is hit, and he's hit by this sniper. He falls immediately onto the deck. He's this is 1:15 in the afternoon. He can no longer, well, he can't walk straight away. He's taken down below deck. I can't remember if I've put this in. So this is the deck where he was, and you can see this little brass plaque. That's supposed to be the actual position he fell, and it's now commemorated with this plaque. It just says, "Here Nelson fell, 21st of October 1805." He is taken below deck. I think this is a constable. I meant to look it up, but immortalized in this portrait. The picture on the right I took. I've been to Victory multiple times. It's a lovely ship to go and see. It's very atmospheric, but this lantern is always lit on the point. It's at the point where Nelson was taken. He was seen to by the ship's surgeon, Beatty, and it became clear that there was nothing that could be done. He must have been in incredible pain. The shot had gone through around about his collarbone, and from what I can kind of gather, sort of goes through him almost diagonally. So it goes through his left lung. It breaks two or three ribs and lodges itself into the back under his shoulder blade. So this ball never leaves him. He has no exit wound. So he is he's got spinal damage. I think he says that my back's been shot out. He's obviously bleeding internally. He must have been in incredible amounts of pain. So like I say, he's carried below deck. He's here, so you can literally go to where he was taken. It's really poignant. He is slowly dying. He takes 3 hours to die. However, by the point that he does die, Hardy, who is a friend as well as the captain of the ship that he's on, has been able to tell him that they have been victorious in the battle. He'd been popping down to see him during this time. Apparently Nelson was still giving orders as he could. He is fading, as you would expect, and he dies at 4:30 p.m. He's 47 years old. So actually, I don't think he does get the sort of dying. 47 isn't old, but it's not dying.
He's not in the 27 club, is he? He's not.
No, yeah, exactly.
He's not Phoenix.
So he's survived longer than he thinks he's going to, or maybe that's a bit of bravado, though. It sounds like young person bravado to me. So
I'm bound to die at any given second.
Yeah,
because I'm such a hero.
Exactly. And despite the fact that they are victorious at Trafalgar, it is overshadowed by the death of Nelson. Obviously, they're relieved that they've won, but the seamen were openly crying. You know, he was very popular with the public. But he was incredibly popular with the Navy, with the sailors, with everyone there. So, ordinary seamen were breaking down crying. Now, there's a bit of a debate, you might have heard, about what his last words were.
Kiss me, Hardy.
Yes. So there's at least three surviving eyewitness accounts which say that he said, "Kiss me, Hardy." And that it was it's a friendly moment between them. Nelson had told Hardy he felt that in a few minutes he should be no more. I have to admit, it made me, when I was reading this bit, it made me cry. He felt that he said, I felt that in a few minutes I should be no more. And then adds, don't throw me overboard, Hardy. He didn't want the sailors' burial at sea. To which Hardy replied, oh no, certainly not. And then he asks, Nelson asks for him to please take care of my dear Lady Hamilton. Please take care of he repeats himself, take care of my poor Lady Hamilton. Kiss me, Hardy. To which Hardy knelt down and kissed his cheek. And Nelson replies, now I am satisfied. Thank God I have done my duty. And Hardy stands up for a minute or two, kneels down again and kisses Nelson on the forehead. By this point, he must have lost his sight completely because he says, who is that? And obviously Hardy replies, it's Hardy. And he just says, God bless you, Hardy. At which point Hardy withdraws back to the quarterdeck and doesn't see his friend alive again. So that kiss me, Hardy, and thank God I've done my duty is sort of pretty much accepted to be his last words. However, the Victorians did have their own views,
Of course.
which are a complete load of bollocks. So let's go into that.
Full of shit, but
yes, because you also may have heard that some. I mean, I'm sorry, but what? I don't know if they got a little bit prudish, the Victorians, about men kissing men, because you can't possibly be friends, can you? And decided that no, what Nelson was doing in his final dying moments was talking Turkish, and that indeed he actually said "Kismet, Hardy," Kismet meaning fate or destiny. So, no, I don't think so.
Homophobia is a disease. Like I knew that already, but it's just the mental gymnastics that would get you to kind of go, it can't possibly be a man, even platonically kissing another man because that's gay. Like that, it's brain rot. Absolute brain rot.
It is ridiculous. So I
love how he said, take care of my Lady Hamilton. His side piece, not his wife.
No, I think he and his wife had fallen out many years before. Actually, I don't think they had a good relationship. But
did they not kind of piece it back? I didn't know whether or not they kind of fallen out with it properly.
I think they properly fell out.
Is that in the background, still being his wife, but basically ignoring him?
Pretty quick. Oh yeah, because when I'm bleeding out with a hole in my lung, I switch to my fifth language. Same, babe. Same, yeah.
In a profound manner as well. You're going to choose words.
Yeah.
Not just like
not any old gibberish. Not any old gibberish.
Kismet, Hardy. Kismet. But I won't enunciate. I'll switch to my fifth language, but I won't enunciate. So kismet becomes kiss me. All right.
To which, I mean, Hardy must be hellishly embarrassed as well if what Nelson's actually said is kismet and he's kissed him twice. I mean,
what? Maybe that's what it was like. Maybe he didn't say, who is that? Maybe it's like, why are you doing this, mate? Stop licking my forehead.
Yeah, who's that? Yeah, exactly. Who is that? Get off. In the Royal, in the Maritime Museum at Greenwich, you can see, so sorry if this is a bit gross, but there are the stockings and trousers, breeches, I don't know what you call them, that Nelson was wearing when he died, well, at the Battle of Trafalgar and when he died. The stockings are stained with blood. That's not his blood. That is the blood of his secretary, whose name I'm afraid escapes me right this second, who basically, when he fell, it was his blood on the deck. The trousers, you might not be able to tell from that photo, but you can see that they've been cut. So they were cut off him by his surgeon, trying to work out if there's anything they could do. Again, I've got another picture on the right-hand side, actually, Kat, I think you might have asked me to bring this one in as well, but I'd already put it in, so we can come back to it for your bit. But it's just sort of starting to sort of show you the depictions. You know, he's been taken up to heaven with presumably Hardy at the bottom. You can see the man in the red coat with his sort of hand on his head, like looking up in despair, while Nelson's taken up into heaven. Yeah, so that's right. So I'm going to put a picture of him back up while I talk about the next bit, if that's okay, because I'm going to talk about how they preserved his body and got him back to London. Unless you're doing this bit, Kat.
I have got it, but you can cover it. One thing I just want to flag up is the conversation about the outfit he's wearing on deck when he's shot, and also the individual or whoever it was who was responsible, because there is conversation about the use of the term sniper. And for some people, sniper has a very distinct meaning of somebody who fires on a person from a concealed space surreptitiously. That is not, I think, what perhaps we, as non-military folk, understand a sniper. I always think of a sniper as somebody from a high vantage point shooting at you. I understand that it has a different meaning. He is... the understanding is that he is shot by a musket ball from what is called the mizzen top, which is, to my understanding, an elevated position. As you said, Philippa, whether or not he was visible, selected, and the target is a massive question, because he is on the quarterdeck, which is where he falls. It is packed. It's already, as we can see from his stockings, slick with the blood of other fallen people. As you rightly point out, battle scenes are fucking chaotic and terrifying and loud. And in terms of what he's wearing, his biographer, let me just remind myself of the name of the biographer. Do bear with for 1 secundo. N.A.M. Roger, his biographer, who writes his ODMB entry, says that, quote, contrary to myth, he was wearing an old uniform coat with inconspicuous cloth replicas of his decorations. There is no evidence that he deliberately sought or recklessly courted death, though he was certainly well enough aware of the risks of the action. That isn't to say that he didn't previously recklessly seek death. But on that occasion, he was in an old coat wearing fabric replicas of his achievements and medals. So he probably wasn't glinting in the sunlight, so to speak.
Now you've said that, I remember hearing that. Yeah. But yeah, either way, I mean, this is obviously an imagined scene.
Yes.
But if you think of all the smoke and all of that, and I don't know, you can watch dramas with this sort of thing going, and it's chaos. It's absolute chaos.
It's hot. It's dirty. You have men and boys stripped to the waist, covered in soot and gunpowder. You know, if you're in the wrong place and you're not able to hear when a cannon fires, you can be badly injured by the recoil of a cannon. Legs are lost simply by the recoil of a cannon. And you are on something that is desperately trying to sink beneath the waves to drown the fucking lot of you. War is always far less clean than it is presented in film. It's always more chaotic, more bloody. But war at sea is a hellscape.
Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine it. I get freaked out by being on one ship. That just the idea of all of these in close proximity anyway, and then they're firing on each other, trying to actually kill each other. I mean, just amazing.
And there's a hail of musket bullets coming down from your boats, ships, from other people's ships, you know, crossfire, chaos,
absolute chaos. But Nelson's obviously died. As the battle comes to an end, they're floating off the coast of Spain. The ship is badly damaged. It needs to go back to it needs to go to Gibraltar for repairs, and there's no coffins on board. You're not going to stick lead, which is required on a ship that's already quite heavy with all the guns and etc. And he is so he's when he dies, his hair is cut to be sent back to Emma Hamilton by as per Nelson's request. He's stripped of his clothes except for his shirt, and he's put in a cask, a large cask called a liga, which is the largest size that they would have had aboard. And this is filled or full of brandy. This is a way that they're going to preserve his body on what's going to be an incredibly long time to get it back to London, because the ship, like I say, needs repairing. You're also away. And there is sort of an opening at the top and the bottom of the barrel. That is to allow for the brandy to be switched, refreshed, if you like, without having to disturb his body. So that's the 21st of October. A marine sentry is put on duty to guard the body. It's put in this casket on the middle deck. This must have scared the life out of him. On the 24th, it's not going to be the same person all the time, but on the 24th of October, there was what is described as a disengagement of air from the body, which made the lid open of the cask, which must have freaked him out. But of course, it's a decaying body, so this is what's happened. And they switch the brandy once before it gets to the ship gets to Gibraltar on the 28th of October, where they get more brandy, basically fresh brandy, so they can keep doing this. It's 5 weeks later that the ship arrives at Spithead, during which time that brandy has been renewed twice more. Now, there's again what I think is a daft story. I just don't like this story. It sounds silly to me that the sailors wanted to tap the barrel, did tap the barrel somehow, and drink the brandy from the cask in which Nelson's body is being preserved, and this somehow gives the rise to the phrase "tipping the captain" or tipping, the admiral. I'm sorry, I just don't buy it. It sounds.
They wouldn't have been allowed to get near it, surely, for starters.
I don't think they'd have been allowed to get near it. I don't think they would have wanted to. It's incredibly disrespectful. Besides being horrendously gross, you've got a decay. Anyway, so I don't give that. I can't, unless someone's going to provide some actual evidence. I just don't think.
I mean, the only thing I can think is that it becomes some kind of reverential reliquary thing, but that sounds dangerously Roman Catholic in its kind of operation. And there was, I read somewhere that there was talk that there was complaints that he hadn't been put in rum. And perhaps if he isn't put in rum is because that's the ship's rations.
Yeah.
How many lower down soldiers are getting brandy? They get rum.
Yeah. Yeah. And whatever they did, it seems to have worked. This is the story that when the body is so by the 11th of December, this is when he's taken from the cask and found to be in a state of perfect preservation, without being in the smallest degree offensive, apparently. And this is when he's embalmed by his friend Dr. Beatty, the ship's surgeon, who finds the ball that's killed Nelson. So this is how we know sort of so much detail as to where it went, and it had passed through the spine and lodged in the muscles in his back, a little bit below his shoulder blade, fracturing the second and third ribs as it had gone through. He's then put in a coffin. Do you know about the coffin, Kat?
Go for it. Do the coffin.
The coffin into which he's put. So he is wrapped in lead. He's basically, long story short, he's embalmed. He's encased in lead, and he's put into a wooden coffin, which is made from the mainmast of another French ship. I mean, he's socking it to the French even in death, which I personally love. L'Orient. So this French ship, L'Orient, was taken at the Battle of Nile, and his coffin is made from the mainmast of that ship. And it once he's in that, then that's when his body is conveyed to the old Royal Naval College at Greenwich, which I think, Kat, is possibly where you want to pick it up.
Yeah.
Okie dokie.
Okay. Before we do so, do we have a rant, ladies?
Cat's
God, it's
ready.
gone really dark. I'm sat here in the dark. Oops.
My eye hurts.
Your eyes?
Yeah, I've got something's pissed my eye off, some sort of allergy, and they're a bit like
No.
I lack.
But now I look very fetching.
Mm.
I don't.
Can I kick off my rant?
Please do. Please do.
My rant is about group behaviour towards people who are just doing their job. Now, I'm going to point out that I am no fan of authority. I am, frankly, a problem, and I seek to be on as many occasions as possible. But I am really becoming increasingly peeved, and I think it's, in some cases, it's being done hoping to goad people into a reaction that can be filmed onto and then placed up on social media. I am becoming increasingly peeved with people jeering, goading members of the household cavalry.
The videos I see is so annoying. Especially,
I'm annoyed by behaviour at Horse Guards Parade. I've seen some really atrocious stuff when I've been working at the Tower of London. They aren't going to speak to these people. They aren't going to react, but you are making their day 10 times shitter than it needs to be.
Mm-hmm.
And
they
I
treat
don't know,
them like they're what pisses me off about this is it's like England and London are a Disney World for people.
yeah. And
it's all there just for your enjoyment.
Here's the thing. This sort of stuff, having been a person in costume, I know that this stuff happens to us too. I know for a fine fact that it happens at Disney because I see these motherfuckers goading people at Disney too. And in all cases, leave people alone. Like with Disney characters, with people who are in a costume, they want to be spoken to respectfully. They want you to have, they are part of the customer service. They want you to have a nice time. Active duty military personnel have a job to do that is not talking to you, and certainly not dealing with your poorly behaved, goady children. Stop it. Control them.
It's the ones who love the horses as well, and they think they're horsey people, so they go up and pet the horse, and you're like, oh.
I mean, here's the other thing, and that's a side note. Basic rule: if an animal is working, guide dog, medical alert dog, military horse, police horse, they are a working animal. Don't pet working animals for the safety of the person handling them and the job they're doing, and you. Don't be a dick. There we go.
There we go.
I like it. Yeah.
It's because there's only like that there is that sort of element of, well, people don't realise that they shouldn't be doing this, and
there's
they shouldn't
be
be
fucking
doing that.
sign saying don't touch the horse, or these horses might bite, and it's the horses.
And and it's very obvious that nobody else is going up and approaching as well.
I mean,
and
also,
it's very obvious when they take a small step back, that's that obviously means back off.
Yes.
And it's just, even if somebody really didn't know and someone said, you know what, you're a little bit too close, and they apologized and stood back, it seems a bit bizarre that people wouldn't know that. But if it's a genuine mistake, it's not quite so bad. But I don't know what it is. It's just that people think it's all right as long as it's them.
Yeah. And Steve, yes, they are real soldiers, not some reenactors. But here's the thing: reenactors or historic interpreters or costumed people are there, particularly in heritage sites, at the behest of that heritage site to add to the engagement and education potential. They're doing a different job, but they're still doing a job. The things that have you don't tend to see military personnel being touched. That hardly ever happens. They do grab the reins of horses, which I think is just absolutely wild. I've seen that happen. I'm like, what? You wouldn't do that to somebody who's not in the military. Don't put your hands on somebody else's reins. Basic rule. But the things that happens to reenactors and in costumed interpreters, the amount of times people have touched me and my colleagues sexually inappropriately. Keep your hands to yourself. Treat people with respect, whether they're doing a job or not. In the same way, if somebody's walking around Camden with a full skull face tattoo, dressed up as a punk with like a massive green mohawk, that doesn't give anybody the license to fucking touch them or to verbally abuse them.
It's bizarre, isn't it? Because you wouldn't go into like Tesco's and start feeling up the cashier.
Well, people might try in today's world, typically.
Well, there is right. We're going to sound old now, but there has been there's been a decline in behaviour, general behaviour. You know, I go to the theatre, and people just don't know how to act in a theatre. There's just this general like
everyone's a little bit feral,
and selfish. It's about what they need to get out of their day.
The old thing of you're on the tube with your phone out and you haven't got headphones in, but you're playing TikTok at full volume.
People, I'm sorry, but some of the older people are the worst because they don't have headphones. I was in a pub. Was I in the pub? I was somewhere. It might have been a pub. I don't want to incriminate myself, but it was like an opium den.
It was an opium den chasing the dragon when she heard this thing.
Were you in Brighton, Philippa?
She was in the basement in Brighton.
I am not
up
going
to a nipple clamp.
No, leave my nipples alone. I am not going near Brighton. But yeah, and he was just watching something. I think someone had sent him something, so he turns it up so he can hear it. Well, of course, what time he can hear it, everyone
can hear it.
It's not like everyone's in their own. Not everyone. Sorry, I don't want to. But in their own world, it's bizarre.
Yeah.
I think another on the same vein is people who don't control their children. Now, any kid can run off, any kid can make a grab for something. You know, it does happen. We've got to be a little bit realistic about this. But people who just, their kids are running round everywhere, you know, you're in a restaurant and the kids are up and down and up and down. But obviously for people that are interested in visiting the types of place that we are, not that it's okay anywhere, you've got like sometimes very delicate and precious items, like, you know, it's a chair, it doesn't mean you can sit on it. It's a bed, it doesn't mean that you can lie on it. You know, if it's hanging on the wall, it could be up there very, very delicately. You know, if something's obvious, and it doesn't even have to be something delicate, if something's an exhibit, it's an exhibit. But certainly if it's clearly got some age to it, then just no, was it cat? No touchy touch.
No touchy touch.
Yeah, no touchy touch. I have had apartment warders tell me about parents picking up their children so they can reach over the ropes to touch vases, paintings, and tapestries with their sticky toddler hands. And I'm telling you, as somebody who is in possession of a 3-year-old, I am his handler. I don't feel like I'm parenting him. I'm desperately trying to like stave off how I put a muzzle on him. But the bottom line is I see the way and I hear about the accounts of how these children are behaving. And like, I don't want to judge, but I do. If he thought he was going to get to behave that way in a historic site or anywhere, he's got 2 hopes and Bob's dead. It ain't happening. He doesn't get to behave that way in theatres. He doesn't get to behave that way in restaurants. If he kicks off, if he starts screaming on the tube, I take him off the tube. I will wait for the next train until he sorts his shit out, because I am not going to make everybody else's day worse. And I'm not going to let him do it. And you know what? Somebody will kick off. He will kick off. But he has. I do a countdown. I 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and sometimes I turn to him and go, "Do you want a consequence?" I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know what happens after 1, and I don't know what the consequence is. But guess what? Neither does he. So we're all okay for now.
Yeah, as long as it works, it works. That's it.
Yeah. No, there's unfortunately quite a few entitled parents who seem to think that their kids should be as important to you as they are to them, and therefore, if they're kicking off, we should all join in. No, sorry, I've done mine. You do yours, and just have a bit of just respect for other people around you.
Yeah,
it's not their problem. Oh, I don't know.
No,
because they will grow up. People, man.
That's what it is.
People.
Yeah.
People.
Right, there we go. That was a rant.
I liked it. I like that one. I like that one very much.
Oh, hang on, I'm just gonna dab my sweat moustache. Apologies.
Well, I've got
beautiful. Do you know what? This is what it's like. It's July, and I'm just.
It's not even
pregnant,
hot.
And
it's
I'm
a good job it's not hot July.
Is it not hot? I'm sweating.
No,
I'm sweating in church.
I'm in a hoodie in July.
I've got something to show you, Kat. They've changed the packaging, all right, so it confused me. But look,
oh,
the world
changed it. Oh,
the world's best. Yeah, it's blue, didn't it? The world's best biscuit. Other biscuits are available, but
these are the greatest ever created.
Yeah, the greatest.
You filthy minx! Put it in my mouth. Right.
I'll owe you some when I come and visit Kat. I'll bring you some.
Love it. You better. Okay, so we have got to his body being brought back.
Yes.
Now, as we've mentioned, the grief that is felt by the naval community around him on this journey back is profound. It said that there was supposed to be somebody playing the pipes, a piper on board ship. This person was so bereaved that they were crying so much they were unable to pipe following the death of Nelson. There was very much a sense in the country, in the Navy, that they had won this amazing victory, but they had lost so much. And Nelson becomes this figure of heroism. If we just whack up where he's put. So this is the painted hall of the old Royal Naval College. I am of the belief that this, just before the pandemic, they repainted the whole ceiling, because my husband actually bought tickets for me and him to go up and look at them, as like get right close up to the ceiling.
Oh, wow.
This is an absolutely gorgeous space. So the body lays in state for 3 days in the painted hall of the Greenwich Hospital. The arrangements for this lying in state fall apart because the people that come to see him laying in state there's just so many more people than anybody had expected, that they really find it very difficult to keep track of what's going on. So 8th of January 1806, he goes by Thames to Whitehall. Then there's a funeral procession that goes through the streets, goes from the Admiralty to St. Paul's Cathedral. The tomb of Nelson, in a way, this gives me glee, and I'm going to tell you why. I've got some pictures of the origins of the tomb, and we'll end on the tomb. So first up, this is where the tomb started.
If you want the pictures of the
next one, please.
Oh, because I've done it.
Okay, so what we have got, the one that's on the right-hand side, where you've got somebody in repose and there's angels around it. This is the plan for, or the plans that have been put together for Cardinal Thomas Wolsey's tomb. The V&A got saved the angels that are on those pillars. This is a very, very grand edifice. With the fall of Wolsey, Henry borrows the sarcophagus and clearly some of the plans. He's like, whatever Wolsey had, like that, but make it 3 tiers, and I want more pillars. This was supposed to be what he was going to have. He was going to have this enormous tomb.
I love it.
Obviously, he'd seen the one to his parents, the Torrigiano one for his parents. He liked what he saw. He wanted a bit of that for himself. Interestingly, in the commissioning of his tomb, he also says there should be a space for masses to be said for his soul. Presumably because he was very keen to not spend any time in purgatory, despite the fact that the reforming faith that he is supposed to have, brought into the country a little bit maybe, and then changed his mind back and forth and flip-flopped like a fishy fish, definitely don't believe in purgatory. Henry, at the end of his life, definitely does. As we know, Henry rests for all eternity beneath a very sad little innocuous slab in Windsor, and for that I am eternally grateful, and it makes me go ha 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 ha. Instead, the sarcophagus bit that you can see, both Wolsey's not edifice. What's the word? Not an edifice. Oh God, baby brain. Sculpture of a corpse. Sculpture of a human. Effigy. Thank you, not edifice. Effigy. Apologies. Brain fart. That sarcophagus is what you also see up on the top of the Henry tomb. And as you can see in this beautiful picture, below stairs at St. Paul's Cathedral, it is what lays on top the marble tomb of Admiral Horatio Lord Nelson. This is how he is remembered in St. Paul's. The kind of development of him in the immediate aftermath of his death, he does take on this quality of being almost saint-like. And perhaps we can visualize that through that painting that's called the Apotheosis of Lord Nelson, which I think we have got
with him rising to.
Yeah.
I can't remember where I put it. Bear with me, caller. I can't remember where I put it. Oh, there it is.
There we go. So this one, what we are seeing here is we are seeing Nelson going up, his apotheosis going up into heaven. He's being received into immortality, and he is going up into essentially Mount Olympus. The female figure that you see sort of half kneeling, reaching up in the lovely hat, that is Britannia. So Britannia is grieving, seeing him on his way. Her shield has been rested to her one side. She's set aside her weapons. She's passing him off. There is also above her another female figure placing a laurel wreath around his head. That is the figure of Fame. Who else have we got? We have got the god of war, Mars, with his helmet and left arm is outstretched. Behind him, we've got Hercules. And then above them all is Jupiter, supreme ruler of gods and mortals, waiting for Nelson to come up. This is clearly, he's taking on a place where he is semi-divine. What goes along with that, when you create essentially the notion of an almost sainted figure, is you do start getting what we might classify as relics. So there begins to be this trade in Nelson memorabilia, things from the battle. This silk stocking, if somebody had got hold of that would have been in bits and pieces around people's houses. And so much so that even fraudulent relics start being created. However, as time moves on, morals do start to shift and change. And when more is known about his relationship with Emma Hamilton, and his letters start to be better known, there is this very kind of moralizing crusade. And so his reputation and his public perception does take a massive dent. So perhaps the most famous memorial to Nelson is, it's all the way back the other way, isn't it? Is this one that we see in Trafalgar Square. That's on the left of the image. This is Nelson's column in Trafalgar Square. So Nelson's column from bottom to top sits at a height of 169 feet and 3 inches, or that is 51.5 and some change meters. The statue itself is 5.5 meters tall. That's just over 18 feet in height. This is something that it doesn't get finished until 1843, by which time there are a whole bunch of other Nelson monuments throughout the English-speaking world. His popularity publicly has waned sufficiently that the majority of funds for this to be built does have to come from the Navy. I think there was an expectation, perhaps much like the tomb for Princess Charlotte, that there would be a kind of similar public outpouring of grief and funds, but it didn't quite materialize in the same way. Nevertheless, as time moves on further, as the moralizing characteristics start to dissipate somewhat, what Nelson then becomes once again recognized for is his military credentials, is his strategic planning. And as the 20th century is going through its early decades, as we are on the precipice of World War I, the Navy and the Admiralty is essentially presenting how well prepared they are for a future war by having a report on Nelson's tactics at Trafalgar. So even in the kind of early decades of the 20th century, the Admiralty is using Nelson and his strategies as evidence for their preparedness and power. Despite all of this, though, the First World War, I think the Admiralty expects there to be the chance of there being another Trafalgar. As we know, there isn't anything of that kind of fame and quality, I suppose, in the public memory. However, as time goes on further, from the 1920s onwards, as filmmaking starts to increase, we start seeing plays and films featuring the life of Nelson. And in that, we start to see once again the relationship with Emma Hamilton being a prime focus, because in the early part of the 20th century onwards, that is the thing that then I think piques the public imagination. Then what we can see here as well, next to Nelson's column in Trafalgar Square, is evidence of the fact that it does become somewhat more complicated. So this is Nelson's pillar, and it stood in Sackville Street in Dublin. This is how it looked in around about 1830. So it does predate Nelson's column, obviously. The legacy of Nelson, for many reasons, not just the modern conversation about whether or not he could have intervened in the enslavement and Britain's role in enslavement. Nelson, because he becomes this heroic figurehead of Britain, and because of the role played by the Navy in Britain's expansion as an empire, Nelson and empire, rightly or wrongly, become intertwined. I think some imperial drivers liked using Nelson as a figurehead. Certainly, the English-speaking world is happily putting up statues of him. He becomes almost a kind of trademark of empire. And I think, therefore, understandably, as empire contracts, falls apart, becomes Commonwealth, whatever you want to call it, that connection that was forced, that's perhaps a wider conversation, then starts to make the legacy of Nelson as a symbol more complicated. Statues of him across the English world and across former colonies particularly become focuses of conflict. And so this is perhaps exemplified best with Nelson's Pillar, because in 1966 there are 2 terrorist attacks that ultimately destroy Nelson's Pillar in Dublin. Nevertheless, if you want to go and drink to the health of Lord Nelson, I mean, it's a bit late now, there are still not in Ireland, but in the UK, there are 53 pubs called the Lord Nelson. I'm looking at the map here. We've got 9 Lord Nelson pubs in London, 16 in Nottingham. There is 1 near Glasgow, 1 in Edinburgh. So yes, there are 53 UK pubs called the Lord Nelson. Not the most popular name, but nevertheless,
Not doing bad for a man who's been dead for 200 years.
Not bad for that. We're still keeping it going.
I have a question about Nelson's column. Nelson's column. This sounds like a stupid question, but it is legit. Why is it so tall?
I mean, I think it's when it comes to imperial messaging, we seem to be of the belief that bigger was better in most things. We do seem to believe that size matters, and when it comes to triumphal arches and obelisks penetrating the sky, we want them as meaty and phallic as they could possibly be.
Possible. Well, that makes sense.
I wonder if there was some thing is though, there's always meaning in things. So I don't know.
Yeah.
You probably find out it was as tall as the Victory was supposed to be wide or something. Like, you know, I don't know. The because the brasses around, well, not brasses, whatever you call them, around the bottom, the 4 plaques, the large plaque, you can sort of see them in black there. They're all depicting, one's his death at Trafalgar, one's the Battle of Copenhagen, one's Battle of the Nile, and the other one that we talked about, Cape St. Vincent. But they're also all made from melted down French cannons. So another nice little kicker to Le Francais there.
Yeah, I mean, I have no doubt that somewhere there is evidence as to why that particular height was chosen, and no doubt it was significant. I have not seen what that might be, but it doesn't exist.
No. Did you also know that the Tsar of Russia put towards the cost, maybe even up to a quarter of the cost?
I did not know that. I did read that Adolf Hitler was very interested by it, so much so that if he apparently, I need to double check this, but apparently one of the articles I read suggested that if he had invaded Britain, there was a plan to move Nelson's column, I think, to Berlin.
Well,
which is
okay, because that
I don't quite know why. I don't quite know why.
No.
Yeah, I'm sure that was high up on his list of to-dos once he moved in.
Yeah. And what next?
I'm trying to think. Where did I see that? I'm just having a look through where I saw.
So shall I just mention why I put because you didn't ask me to put these other photos up, but that is in so the photos up on the right hand side of this kind of whatever you call that. What do you call that when it's like decoration on the outside of the building? Anyway, that is actually in a courtyard at the Old Royal Naval College, which would have been in a position where people would have seen it at the time, not necessarily, it's sort of not if you were visiting there, it's not somewhere you can go, but you wouldn't know to. And it depicts the scene of Nelson dying. But also interestingly, that is Code Stone.
I was going to say that's your favourite lady.
My favourite lady. Yeah, Eleanor Code. That's Code Stone.
I'll have to tell you when one of my colleagues is playing Eleanor Code again, because we have people playing her at Greenwich. So my friends have played her at Greenwich.
Yes.
I've just found the source of the Hitler wanted to move Nelson's column. I read that in a Guardian review about a book published in 2007 by Christopher Wynne called "I Never Knew That About London," and in it, the quote goes that this person reviewing it says that from this book, quote, "I learned that number 10 Downing Street contains 160 rooms, that Hitler planned to move Nelson's column to Berlin after his successful invasion, and apparently the pelicans in St James's Park are descended from a single pair given to Charles II by the Russian ambassador in 1664." And it goes on. So that's where I saw that about Hitler wanting to move it. It was from a review of a book in the Guardian.
Okay, so we don't know if it's referenced.
No, it may. I haven't read the book.
Hitler was off his tits.
Yeah.
So
methamphetamine is a hell of a drug.
So you might have seen a photo of it and gone, I want that. I want that.
I want it.
He did love a kind of obelisk edifice.
Loves a good obelisk. He probably could have got one made.
He could have. He could have had his very own skyscraper phallus made. He could have.
Do you reckon that's the whole reason he wanted? Phallus. It's the whole reason he wanted to invade Britain. It's actually because he wanted Nelson's column.
He looks like he goes, "Oh, look at that core!"
Oh, yeah, there's a trinket.
Bloody big. Can't put that in your pocket, can you?
Love it. It's like it's all worth it if I get that.
Yeah, but then no, it's like you get it, then he wouldn't want it anymore.
Yeah. No, the thrill is in the chase.
Yes. Or it's like Gru from Despicable Me, how he goes around and steals all the massive monuments and things. He'll get up one day and Nelson's column's gone.
Did he steal Nelson's column?
No, but maybe he could. It might have been on his list.
Not setting his sights high enough, clearly.
Literally, in both capacities.
I think Becky's got it right where she's put it. Pediment, maybe.
Pediment.
Yeah.
Right. Friends.
I didn't know anything about Nelson, but I quite like him.
I quite like him. I don't think the criticism of him, I think it's very retrospective.
Mm-hmm.
He's so well liked. The Prince of Wales, who would become Prince Regent, who would become George IV, attends the funeral as a citizen, because royalty don't attend. The protocol was royalty don't attend funerals of anyone who isn't royalty, who isn't members of their own family. And he goes to Nelson's funeral. He's regarded in such high honor, but for everyone, clearly, from royalty down to the men he serves with on the ships.
I mean, also George IV, as he becomes, was obsessed with Napoleon, and with the naval battles. And there was kind of talk about how he would essentially tell stories of battles that had been between England and France, and he made it sound like he was there.
Yeah,
man never served in his life. And one of his commanders, when he would sort of turn to him and go, "Isn't that right?" Whoever it was, and the commander would very politically say, "I've often heard you say so, Your Majesty." Apparently,
yeah. Steve makes the point as well. It was a state funeral, which also is unusual. Yeah.
But so is Lion's State.
A state funeral, you're properly fancy, aren't you?
Yeah.
Like properly fancy.
Yeah. I mean,
he buried with his parents, so it's a bit like.
There was one account that says he didn't want to be buried in, because he did want a good burial. Like you know, the reason he doesn't want to be thrown overboard is he wants to have a good burial. He's got sites because he says he doesn't want to be buried at Westminster Abbey. Thanks. He'll get buried at St. Paul's. St. Paul's is on a hill. That's why it's there. Westminster Abbey is, as far as Nelson concerned, too risky. It's probably going to get returned to the swamp that it once was at some point. So he thought it was a bit risky to be buried there.
Fair. For somebody who spent so much money, did not want to be underwater, did he? Not want to be underwater.
No, interesting.
Interesting, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Julesie's just put something that's absolutely ruined my buzz for him. Does this portrait not look like Barry Manilow? And now I cannot fucking unsee that.
No, but the problem I've got, you see, is that I was thinking he reminds me of somebody. It's not Barry Manilow. It's the husband of somebody I hate because she's a bitch. So that's kind of like...
He doesn't like Manilow.
It's not his fault that his wife's a bitch, but actually he's enabling it by not sort of pointing out to her that she's a bitch.
Sorry, we've just scored in the 91st minute.
Does that mean do we have more things in the hole than the other people have things in the hole?
We have one more thing. We have put one more ball in the net than the other team. Yes. So as it stands, we'll be going to the finals of the Euros, but there will be extra time. Well, unless the Netherlands can score in the next, I don't know what the extra time is going to be, but next 3 or so minutes.
30 minutes of extra time. Has it got into just a few?
No. This would just be injury time, if you like. Well, it's called injury time.
The thing is England scored really early, and we nearly always lose when that happens.
No, well, the Netherlands scored first. That was a very good goal. But we got a penalty after that, so that's how we equalised. 2 minutes of extra time, so we don't have to hold out for very long, and we'll be at the finals.
Dawn said, where has it gone? It's escaped me that the column was originally planned to be 205 feet tall. Which is
I've got
the same
down
height as the main mast of the Victory.
Boom. I knew there must be something. Well done. That's great.
However,
I know it's shorter.
It is shorter than that. I think so. It was made shorter because safety.
Because what?
Because of safety.
Be
a bigger boy. So the original plan was to be 203 feet tall, apparently. But it was reduced because of fears of stability. So there we go.
Now all that happens is birds crap on it. It's quite sad, really.
But then you get Blue Peter presenters going up there, cleaning it
off.
There you are. Right. Let's let Philippa wait.
Philippa, what's happening next week?
I actually don't know.
Which it is. I know if it helps.
If we do get to the final, when is the final supposed to be happening of the sports ball?
Sunday.
Okay.
Sunday.
So we're safe.
We're good. We're fine.
Okay.
Yeah. So next week. Oh yes. This is fun. So next week we are delving into someone who perhaps I know that you may or may not have heard of, but you through one of us or all of us would have heard or seen about his work. It is Nicholas Owen, the priest hide builder, who I've still got Nelson up, who did a lot of the priest hides at Harvington Hall.
Phil's not very happy that we're talking about him without him. And I'm like, well,
you can come if you want.
Had mate years ago, and then you kept skanking us. So what can I say?
If he wants to come down and talk about Nicholas Owen, he can come and be a moderator for our nonsense if he wants. He can be our corrector if needs be. He can be offering additions, comments.
Well, he is now one of the country's leading voices on priest holes, isn't he? Because the main
you get spending a lot of time on one.
I can't remember the name of the chap, but the chap who was like one of the leading authorities on them passed. You're right, Kat. Passed away year and a half ago. So his
What, so
son.
Phil's just assumed the position because the guy who knew the most
It's not about
This guy,
priesthood.
he knew this guy, and this guy's son has been putting all his father's work together because it was a bit sporadic, and he's been enlisting Phil to come and help
Paige
him
says,
amalgamate all this stuff.
skanking you means something else in the UK. I mean, it means something else, I think, where Catherine's from. If I said someone skanked something off me, they nicked it. They stole it.
Yeah.
Oh, skanky means let you down. You skanked me. You didn't turn up. You were supposed to do that for you.
See, this is because she's.
But I think, this is a Midlands thing, or at
Yeah.
least East Midlands, because it wasn't something I knew till I moved up here.
Yeah, if I skanked something off I would skank something off somebody. I'd nick it.
Right.
Yeah. Although because if you're a skank, you're like
that means you're a tramp.
a low lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Sorry, they have.
Oh, Paige, you can also in the UK. It can also mean you're a tart over here too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can mean that too. It depends on the context. I mean, in the same way that shit, depending on what it's put with, can mean the shit, bullshit, hot shit.
It's like fuck. It's so versatile.
It's versatile. Someone was asked on a podcast the other day, and I can't remember which podcast it was, but it was a clean podcast, and I thought, well, that's unfair. What word, if they could only use one word forever, what would it be? And I thought it's got to be something like, it's got to be some sort of swear. Like, it's so like shit or fuck, which is so adaptable.
It is.
Yeah, versatile.
This word, yes.
We do love a versatile fuck.
Yeah, absolutely. No one wants to be stuck with the same fuck over and over.
No, you want a flexible fuck. That's what you want.
You do. You want variety in your fucks, and so on.
Pretty Piggy's looking for a treat of skanky priest holes.
Yeah, we're gonna get into.
Maybe it would be good to get Phil in, because otherwise there might be a lightning bolt striking us from the heavens as we get smoked.
Look, if a lightning bolt hasn't struck Phil, then we're safe.
That's true. That is true. We're good.
Okay. So if you've enjoyed our shenanigans today, you can buy us little Winnebagos. Philip is very happy at the final. You can go to www. There's 3 of those. buymeacoffee.com/had podcast. That's also the place to come if you would like to join close friends. That is over on the Instagram. What that is it's a place where Catherine finds depraved memes. Usually historical in context, unless they've got a beaver in them, because she has got a rough beaver, this one. And she then shares them to our close friends. So if you want in on the rough beaver action, then that could be a place for you. If your fucks have
got a bit boring, come down and see my rough beaver.
Yeah, and if you want your own rough beaver, you can get your rough beaver t-shirt on our merch store, as well as all your Timmy related merch, as well as your history after dark merch. We've got sliders that say no feet for free on the internet. Those are words for Catherine to live by.
They are. I do.
Yeah. So yes, we've got merch. We've got that. Other things.
Come back next week. Like the video, subscribe.
Yes,
hit the bell, even though it's not always work.
Yeah, during the bell, because that should tell you when we are next going live. Also, you may have noticed that we have been troll free in this chat. That is because I did set the chat to be subscribers only, with a window on it. So if you are watching along and you've been trying to comment and you're nice and you want to, then you will have to be subscribed for the foreseeable, because we don't want any more nonsense like we had previously. So check you're subscribed, and if you're not already, do subscribe. That's it. Before I count us out, we're looking forward to seeing you all next week. In the meantime, be good. If you can't be good, be careful. If you can't be careful, don't get caught. We're going to leave in 3, 2, 1. Bye.